You know what? This is awesome because you are the people I was hoping to see today. You made my day. This is going to be a lot of fun. Today we are talking Tomb of Annihilation, but better, the Trickster Gods. So this is another one of our videos in our series where we talk about Tomb of Annihilation and then I kind of give you my ideas on what I did to spice it up a little bit. So add some things, create a little bit more tension. Especially what we're going to talk about today is put a few more through lines throughout the campaign that kind of connect things a little bit better. It's a huge campaign. So many awesome things happen, but they can feel a little disjointed as they go. You could get distracted in certain quests and forget that there's an overarching thing going on. So the Trickster Gods are one of those things. They are very important once you get to the Forbidden City. Once you get to Omu, they're super important because you're going through different shrines and things like that. And definitely when you get into the Tomb of the Nine Gods, which is what it's called, of course they're going to be super important in there, and they really, really are. There's not a lot of content through the first half of the game about these Trickster Gods. Maybe you'll get a mention here and there, possibly you'll hear a rumor about something, but there's never any real exposition, at least that I could find, about the Trickster Gods until you have to know who they all are. So in my games, I really love payoffs. I love things kind of running, so you can maybe think of them as like running gags, right? So things that they're going to recognize as they go through the campaign and be like, connect that dot to that dot to that dot. And then when you get to the place where it's a huge payoff, then it's just a little bit sweeter. So quick history on Trickster Gods, all right? So Ubtao is the god who created the deity that created Chult, all right? So created the whole landmass, created the fact that it's covered in jungle, created the dinosaurs. He is the god of Chult. Well, he was. So after his creation grew and grew, his people became very fearsome, very bloodthirsty, very greedy. They started to just not respect his creations, and Ubtao actually left, like abandoned his creation and went who knows where. There was a vacuum. There was a vacuum in kind of the theology of Chult, and there were 9 lesser gods that saw an opportunity and they took it. So these Trickster Gods, they're not really gods. They're posing as full deities. They show up in Chult and start to build their followings, and each one of them chooses a different Chultan animal as kind of their totem. All right, and it's kind of a cool thing. It never really becomes super clear to the players, but all 9 of the Trickster Gods embody one of the 9 classic alignments, which is kind of cool. Not a whole lot of role playing there. There's a little bit here and there, but just kind of a fun little touch that's why there's 9 of them. All right, so the first time the Trickster Gods become very important to the party is when they reach Omu. In the Forbidden City of Omu, in order to get into the Tomb of 9 Gods, or the Tomb of Annihilation, which has become known as, because everybody that goes in, nobody comes out. There are shrines, there are 9 shrines spread throughout the city of Omu, and each one of them contains a little cube that is necessary. All 9 of these cubes are necessary to get into the Tomb of Annihilation. Minor detail, not especially for this video. Each of these shrines in Omu has a test. It's a big deal. But this is where the worship of the 9 gods was centralized, is in the Forbidden City of Omu. My players got to Omu in like the 30-something session, 29th session or something like that. So there's a ton of time that they've been in Chult that they wouldn't have heard at all about these things, about these Trickster Gods. Besides that, Acererak betrayed these Trickster Gods. He killed them and imprisoned them in the Tomb of the 9 Gods. Tomb means, dead people in there. So all these 9 gods were murdered and entombed in the Tomb of Annihilation. Right there gives the feeling that, holy cow, what kind of being is powerful enough to kill 9 gods and entomb them? Anyway, so when you're in the tomb, when the players are in the tomb, they're going around and finding these tombs of the 9 gods, and the gods bestow upon them gifts like superhuman gifts that are super important, and they hate Acererak just as much as the party hates Acererak, and they help, even in the final confrontation when Acererak shows up, the spirits of the trickster gods show up, and according to the book, you get a ton of superpowers because of that. I wanted to take that a step further. So obviously, once you get into the tomb, you start liberating these spirits, and you start getting possessed by these trickster gods. They want you to succeed. They know that you can destroy Acererak, so they want you to succeed. So really, you're allies. So my thought was to start creating that kind of ally feel, like these trickster gods are helping them to get there, because they know that the only way they're going to get out is if the party gets there and frees them and dispels Acererak. My thought was to create out in the world these 9 sanctuaries that would be each one dedicated to one of the trickster gods. And I kind of threw them in as they were traveling. So let's say the party's traveling from Camp Vengeance to Wormheart Mine. Okay, that's a big long travel. There's lots of stuff there. So really, there's a lot of just day in day out hex crawl trying to get down there. That can get a little boring. So I would throw in one of these sanctuaries for them to find, and they would just come across it, going through it, going down a trail, and they see an offshoot, and there's some columns that have a carved almiraj on top of them, let's just say. And it obviously goes back into the jungle. They follow it down for a ways, they find one of these sanctuaries, excitement happens. So I put them wherever I want. Since you never know where your players are going to go in this campaign, it doesn't make sense to set them anywhere on the map, because they could miss them by 30 hexes. Like, they could never even come close to them if you put them all over the place. And I wanted to make sure they hit every single one. So I just sprinkled them around. And if I knew kind of where they were going, and I felt like that session needed some spicing up, I threw one of these sanctuaries in there. Side note, in my game, I called them shrines, and that's how all my notes are. And I realized afterwards that all of the places in Omu are called shrines to the trickster gods. And if I would have had some forethought, I would have called them something different. I would have called them sanctuaries, my things that I've created, just to not mess them up. So I'm going to try to say sanctuary, but I might say shrine here and there. Apologize, semantics, hindsight. So I would just sprinkle these around. And that was a lot of fun, because they could be anywhere. And, I had most of them were like, as you're walking down the trail, you see a path going off to the side, right? Boring, but effective. I mean, they can't all be super, super different. But some of them were underground. There's one that, they're walking along and they fall into it, like a sinkhole, they fall into it. There was a part where they were on the ocean, sailing on a ship, and looked out, and here's this stone sanctuary floating in the water, which is really kind of cool. And they took a boat over to it and went down, and it was just this entire thing that was floating in the middle of nowhere. So it shows you that they're placed there by a supernatural power. The other, and my thought was, again, the trickster gods are trying to find those worthy. And so whatever power they're able to get out of the tomb, they're placing in the path of our adventurers these sanctuaries to help them learn, to help them gain experience, gain some magical items or some rewards, and verify their worth, so that when they get to the tomb, they're more likely to be strong enough and smart enough to free the trickster gods and destroy Acererak. So each of these shrines had a few things in common. I said shrine. Sanctuaries. One, there was, at the end of the shrine, or the goal of the shrine, there's a large golden statue of the totem of whatever trickster god it is. Useless, valueless, it's not real gold. They can tell right off the bat it's not real gold, but there's a big statue, big statue and likeness. And usually there are different boxes, like just little treasure chests that are open, and there's always a small figurine. So similar to the large statue of the trickster god, there's a little figurine about this big that's gold colored too. It's not real gold. I didn't want them to get a bunch of this gold and melt it down. It's obviously painted gold, but similar little statue. They're going to collect those. They're going to try to sell them. Nobody will buy them. So fingers crossed your party keeps them all. My idea for this is in the tomb, they can get possessed by different trickster gods. And there is sort of a mechanic of switching possessions. Like if you get possessed by one spirit and then you find another one that has a better benefit, is there a way to swap it? I thought that was kind of cheap to be able to just, I want this plus instead of that plus. I'll just be possessed by the other one. I would think that the trickster gods would not want to be unpossessed, if that makes sense. They would want to be in a corporeal form so that they can help with their own salvation. So that's a mechanic I wanted to avoid in the future. This is one of those, four-sided long games I was trying to play, which is another reason that you got to know this entire campaign. You don't have to know every detail at the start, but you got to know all this kind of stuff so you can build things that tie together and are super satisfying for your players. So what these little totems, these little gold statuettes, at the very end, right before they're going to open the green door, the goblin door, into the cradle of the death god at the very end of this thing, I included a little shrine that had indentations that fit these little guys perfectly. And the thought was, if you're possessed by Shagambi and you'd rather have the powers of Obo'laka, you could take the Obo'laka statuette and put it in this shrine, and alakazam, you'd be able to switch your possession just like that. There's no ramifications, no anger, no anything like that. So to me, it was super powerful. Like, because a lot of the bonuses you get from the trickster gods in the tomb are great, but sometimes they're not quite what you want. Like, there's one that's huge strength, like ridiculous strength. Great if you're a barbarian or a fighter, but not super great if you're a sorcerer or a bard or something. So as great as they are, sometimes you'd want to swap them. Like if you're going into that final battle, you want to be optimized, right? You want to be optimized. So I wanted to give the players a mechanic and a payoff at the end for doing all this work and going through all these shrines to be able to optimize their character with the trickster god spirit that best worked for them. That was the whole idea of those little guys. So each shrine each sanctuary had one of those, those things. A big statue of the totem and one of these little statuettes. And from there, it could be anything different. There were some similarities in construction. There were some similarities in, overall design. But I wanted to make each one of these sanctuaries different because it was supposed to represent each one of the trickster gods, and they're all very different. They would have different ways to test your worthiness. So what I want to do now is run through all 9. Hello, dear viewers. Do not be frightened. This is me, but I'm from the future, and I've come back to save you from an incredibly long YouTube video. Yeah, there are 9 gods. That's a lot to get through in one video, and he's never going to make it. Like, I know I'm from the future. He's never going to make it. So I'm going to split these up a little bit, and we'll do a part 1 and part 2. That way you don't have to just kind of go completely insane listening to drone on about all these great ideas he's had about making this campaign better. I mean, come on. I'm just going to save you from half of this video, and we'll make another one. It'll be just fine. Don't even worry about it. So, on with your viewing. You're welcome from saving you. And, oh, look at him. Look at him all young and full of vim and vigor, and just full of life. Anyway, all right, back to the video. Of these little sanctuaries that I created. So these are all things that I put together just to challenge my party. which again is so cool to be able to do, especially in a campaign like this. Add your own little flavors. I'm hoping that you get some ideas off of this. They don't have to be used in the Tomb of Annihilation campaign. You maybe could do them anywhere else. But I also want you to get you thinking about, you can add to this stuff. Like, you don't have to go by just the book. You can make it the way you want to make it and add things in. You got good ideas. You're a dungeon master, gosh dang it. You can do what you want. Chapter 2, Sanctuaries of the Nine Gods. So, like I said, I sprinkled these out throughout the entire campaign. I'm going to do these in the order that I unleashed them on my players. It builds a little bit, but really you can put these in any order you want. Some of them make sense to be in certain parts of Chult, and some, just make sense elsewhere, but none of them have to be anywhere. You can put them wherever you want. Let's start out with Wongo. So Wongo's totem animal is the Sioux monster, which is a really terrifying psychic, psionic monkey. I regret that I didn't use many of these in my campaign. Really, I didn't use any. There were a couple chances that this creature could have shown up, but I never used them in actual practice. So maybe sprinkle a few of these in out in the jungle or out in some of your random encounters. My players had found a couple stone pillars in the jungle as they were forging through, and a path that went off into the brush, and followed it. So that became a motif for lots of them, as these pillars with the totem on top of it, and a path, like a really worn path. They get out to it. It's very, very simple. It's a stone, not really an obelisk, but it's sort of a little tower. It's got kind of I think almost like an Asian roof to it, and just gray stonework, nothing super fancy about it. The vast majority of them look like this, have this kind of motif. Almost always there's a stairway behind it. So wherever you come up on it, there's a stairway in the back that goes down. That's what Wongo's is like. So Wongo's tomb, or Wongo's sanctuary, was just worn down. I wanted it to be decrepit, like nobody had ever come here. It's falling apart. Moss everywhere, and the stones crumbling. Kind of to illustrate Wongo, who's just crazy, right? Just a crazy trickster. So they get down in here and they start walking through it. There's hallways. There's kind of a circular area. And what they're doing is they're finding traps as they go. But the traps are falling apart. Like they're not even functioning anymore. Even if you were to step on the pressure plate, nothing's going to happen. And that kind of puts into their minds that these are, just so they can remember that these things can be dangerous. But this first one, I kind of went easy on them just to get them into the language of how these sanctuaries work. Came around a wall. There's the big gold statue. 4 boxes around it. They start rummaging through the boxes. They find some loot. They find some supplies, and maybe some gems or something. But they always find the little statuette, and they have no idea what it's for. Put it in their bag. That's the end of this one. Super simple. This is like the intro. This is like the tutorial mode for these sanctuaries. Next, we come on Nangnang. So Nangnang is the grung. And she is devious and feisty and everything that a good grung should be. She is that. So they find this, very similar to the last one. It's got the stone shrine out front, out around the back. There's a stairway that goes down. This one's very visual, so I'm actually going to go to the magic whiteboard, give this a try. First time to do this, so let's go to the magic whiteboard. So the characters come upon the same kind of stonework sanctuary in their travels, and same as before, around the back there's a staircase that goes down, and in this one they enter a very long hallway that kind of has a downward slope to it, but it's just one big hallway. By the time they get to the end of it, they start kind of looking around for some kind of secret latch or trap, and the floor just gives out and they fall straight down. There's a deck save. I just had them do a deck save of, I believe it was 15, to see if they were able to jump to the side before it fell down. In my campaign, one character did, which was very beneficial because that character could then get the others and try to figure out how to free them. The players that fall through this, that fail that dexterity save, they fall down into a large glass, kind of a jar, like an orb. Let me show you. So it kind of goes like this. It's glass, transparent. So they fall down through this into the bottom of this jar. As they fall through this hole, they get sprayed with the spritz of acid. Very little damage, but as they fall through here, they get spritzed with it. All right, so if there are characters on top that are able to see down this hole, they would notice that in the top of this jar is kind of a trough that goes around the lid. So it's almost like a ring around. This is the hole, and then there's this ring around it. And if they look really close, it's a kind of a boiling green liquid. And any party member any character would probably realize that this is acid. The same acid that would have sprayed on them as they go down. So they fall down in here. So here's your player characters now. They're down here in this glass. So it's completely indestructible. Hammer on all you want, not going to break. If they try to get out, let's say the people on top drop a rope down to them. As soon as something passes this opening here, it gets sprayed with acid and the rope disintegrates. Same thing if you were to shoot an arrow up with the rope on it, which my party tried. Rope disintegrates, can't do it. Same thing if they put a ladder down. Anything they're going to put down through this hole is going to get attacked by a spritz of acid and likely be destroyed. So from this, tantalizingly, from this giant orb here, they can see to the side a ledge. It's basically darkness all around them in all different directions. But if they have a character with really good dark vision or something like that, they can see that there's a ledge about 30 feet away. This is basically 30 feet tall-ish. Maybe put that 2 and 2 together and see what's going to happen. So, and over here they can clearly see the shrine of Nangnang and, the boxes that are around it, whatever. Okay? All right, so people on the top, if there are people up there exploring or if they're trying to help, they're trying to rescue, they can do several different checks. We had a dwarf in our party, so he was really good at perception when it came to like stonework and things like that. So he actually found a little carving under the trapdoor. He could kind of see it in the darkness that kind of showed a bucket pouring. And he was able to study it close enough that he realized it wasn't really a warning and more like a reminder. So that got them thinking and thinking. My characters had come right from Yellowark, and I had a thing where there was a group of explorers that was out there that got massacred. And this was a journal that they had. They were searching for this shrine as well, searching for some kind of shrine. And part of the notes also talked about the cleansing, about water and the cleansing of rainstorms and things like that. So they kind of got that in their mind. One of the, if they were to explore the outside of the shrine or of the sanctuary, they would find a bunch of buckets, like water buckets that had been kind of just deteriorated over time. So hopefully all these little hints are starting to plug in that water has something really important to do with this. So what happens if they finally figured out that to start pouring water down, once they pour water into this acid, really any amount other than a teardrop, this all turns to stone, which acts as a counterweight, and the whole apparatus falls over this way onto the ledge, stopping right here, allowing the characters to go off and seek the riches that are to be had at Nangnang Sanctuary. Thank you very much, Magic Whiteboard. I hope everybody had a great time. I'm thinking that maybe we're going to use that a couple more times in this video, so I hope it was good. Let's go to Obo'laka. So Obo'laka is a zorbo. What's a zorbo, you might say? Well, a zorbo is basically a psychotic koala bear. So I think it's hilarious that you take something as cute as a koala bear, one of the cutest creatures ever created, and make it look like that. Hilarious. They're scary. They're very armored. There's a weird mechanic where they're more armored depending on what type of material they're clung to, stone, rock, whatever. That's kind of cool. Plus their claws are super sharp, and they will scratch armor and reduce armor class, which is scary. I also didn't have really a place to put one of these in the actual campaign. Maybe use it. Probably going to be a lot of fun. Let me know how it goes. This one, they walk in, same thing. You know, they run it. They walk into this metal shrine. There's a stairway. They're in a hallway. They defuse a few traps, very simple traps. And this I did kind of to give the players a sense of a false sense of security. Like, oh, we got past those traps without any problem. Then they come into a big, large room that's totally empty, except for across the way there's a door. And so they're searching all over this whole room, worried about traps, right? Putting that idea in their head that this is a trap sanctuary. So then they walk over and they grab the doorknob to go to the next room, and it's a door mimic. So the door starts attacking the person who opened who grabbed the doorknob. They got to fight this door, and terror ensues. Everything is terrifying. The sky's falling. They destroy the door mimic. They walk into the next room. It's a big expanse, like a huge open pit. They can't see the bottom of it. In the middle, there is a bridge horizontally. So they're looking out this way. And way too far away for them to jump or swing or climb or float is this bridge that spans the entire length. But it's sideways. At the very other end is another door and another ledge. So right next to them, there are two levers. There's a white lever and a black lever. So they decide to pull a lever, hoping that one's good and hoping that one's bad, and hoping to choose the good one. Well, Jerk DM says, in my mind, I don't care which one they pull. Whichever one they pull is not going to be the good one. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they encounter a lever mimic. So they pull on this lever, turns into a mimic, grabs onto the guy's face, starts bashing him around, doing whatever they got to do. So then they got to fight this freaking lever. Now they're terrified. They're terrified to touch anything. So I think they even figured out some way to use a stick or something to knock the last lever down. But when they do, then the bridge comes over and they're able to go across. On the other side, they find the sanctuary part of the sanctuary where there's the statue and the boxes. And I couldn't help it. One of the boxes is a mimic. I mean, I've already been a jerk. Might as well be a triple jerk. So kill that mimic, get their loot, get their statuette. They're out. All right, it's me again from the future. And I think we're going to cut it there because, he's 20, almost 30 minutes into this thing and he's gotten through what, two of the 9? Yeah, this guy just talks and talks and talks. It's kind of hard. It's a little awkward for me to look back on those days when I was just, young and just starting out before, I completely took over the social media world. They were simpler times, but man, I sure can talk about through lines, and this connects to that, and I sure say right off the bat a lot. It's really, really annoying. Anyway, I'm going to stop it right here, and then we'll just make part 2, and you'll be able to see that, and you can go about your day as normal. Thank you, citizen, and rock on.